You probably have heard of Kiki's delivery service, and I'm guessing if you clicked on this video, you really like Kiki's delivery service, and I am right there with you. In my opinion, this is the epitome of a comfort watch, and today I'm going to be discussing the art in the film, and while I do that, I'm going to be redrawing this scene from the movie. At the time of recording this, I haven't actually done that part, so please let me know how it turns out. I hope it's great. Feel free to watch that or listen to this like a little podcast, whatever tickles your fancy. That's a weird phrase. Kiki's Delivery Service was released by Studio Ghibli in 1989 based on a novel of the same name by Aiko Kadano. The movie was produced, written, and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, and if you don't know who the absolute legend Miyazaki is, he is the co-founder of Studio Ghibli, and he actually wasn't originally supposed to be the director of this film, but as he puts it in an interview, things fell apart and I had to step in and I ended up directing it. Miyazaki has also directed Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, and Princess Mononoke, to name a few. On his approach to filmmaking, Miyazaki says, "When I make a film, I begin by having a very clear concept of why I have to make it in the first place. What kind of film will it be? What is going to be conveyed? What is the purpose of making this film? I don't make films to send out a message. That might be part of the work involved in clarifying the concept, but that's not enough to send a message. The film has to be entertaining." I love hearing quotes from him because I feel like he's such a genius that I can also become a genius by hearing his words. Kiki's Delivery Service was Studio Ghibli's first majorly popular film, which Miyazaki credits to the wide appeal it had for audiences of all ages. He says, "Kiki was the first hit title out of Studio Ghibli. We finally had a hit movie. Every age group saw it, including small kids and seniors." So the film depicts the story of a young witch in training named Kiki, who must leave home for a year to prove herself as a witch, and this is like a tradition that all witches go through. It's kind of like witch initiation, I believe. And basically she has this wonderful adventure in this seaside town. It's more of a city. And she starts a package delivery service. Like, she's the original Amazon Prime, but way cooler because she delivers all her packages on a flying broomstick. But everything seems to fall apart when Kiki suddenly loses her ability to fly and can no longer understand her talking cat Gigi. Like, so sad. Her talking cat suddenly is just meowing like a normal cat. The plot, in my opinion, is not really what makes this movie so special. Like other Studio Ghibli films, I feel like it's more about how the story is told rather than what the story is. And a big way that they tell the story in Studio Ghibli films has to do with the art. Leading up to production, key staff members at the animation studio were selected to work on Kiki's Delivery Service, and that included Katsuya Kondo, who was brought in for key animation and character design, and Hiroshi Ono for art direction. Since the movie was going to be set in Europe, the main staff took a trip to Sweden to gather photos and inspiration for the movie. The fictional city of Kuriko? The fictional city of Kuriko was based on a town called Visby, Sweden. However, there was inspiration pulled from many cities across Europe and the US. Miyazaki says, "I modeled many different cities for the movie, from Ireland, Stockholm, San Francisco, Paris, to some town in Italy. The European audience can see it's all mixed up, but most Japanese thought it was just a town in Europe. I deceived them beautifully. I enjoyed being mischievous like that." I love this guy. He's so funny. In the film, you can see that there's a lot of different types of architecture. They actually didn't encounter any houses that looked like the bakery on their research trip. In fact, they encountered no wood structures at all, apparently. but they weren't really tied to any particular setting in the real world, so they were able to stretch the truth and make this kind of Tudor-ish style home. Generally though, the city of Kariko is in pretty stark contrast to the lush, nature-filled scenery of Kiki's childhood home. I want to live in this house. It is stunning. There is an overabundance of flowers. Well, I shouldn't say over. There can never be too many flowers, but abundant flowers. And Ono wanted to have a fairy tale look, which I do think they achieved. There is a big contrast between the green in Kiki's childhood home and the orange tones of the city that she ends up moving to. I think that helps differentiate the settings that Kiki finds herself in, and it helps you get the idea that she's somewhere really unfamiliar. So color in an animated film is obviously super important. On color, Miyazaki states, "The reason animated films suffer creatively has to do with the fact that they all use the same colors. It's like, oh, the color of animation. Limiting color only narrows the animation film's potential. Color is absolutely critical for the film's look in Kiki's delivery service. The approach to color is very focused and concise. Lately, I've been reducing colors significantly in the most crucial scenes. For example, action scenes without garish colors are very engaging." So to me, the film uses kind of a less is more approach to color, limiting colors in some scenes without limiting the entire movie's color palette, if that makes sense. Michio Yasuda supervised the color assignments for the film and approached the colors for scenes by selecting more natural and quote restrained colors for backgrounds or in combination with bright primary colors. Originally, the character design for the film included a lot of flashy and bright colors, but the artists decided that it made the overall image look superficial, so they ended up only using those bright and flashy colors for details. Because the character designs are lower saturation generally, the backgrounds can be higher saturation in this film. One example discussed in the book The Art of Kiki's Delivery Service is when Kiki's mom is preparing her potion. The flowers and the plants are painted in very high detail with a combination of high saturation and lower saturation green tones, whereas the characters are mostly in lower saturation colors. On their own, the character design for the two characters in this scene might seem a little bit dull, but in the setting with the bright flowers, they seem right at home and well balanced. Let's talk character design, shall we? So Kiki was originally designed by Kondo to have long hair to match the original novel's description of the character, but because animating long hair would be difficult, they had to rethink this. First, they had the idea to put her hair up into like little pigtail buns with ribbons on each pigtail. However, they ended up deciding that this didn't fit her character very well, so they ended up with the short-haired Kiki that we know and love. And I think personally that her bow is like the most important thing about her design. From a practical standpoint, I think it makes her stand out in every scene, and it also emphasizes her movements and emotions well. But I also think that the bow shows how the artists working on this film were not afraid to put Kiki's girlhood on display or make her girlhood feel over the top or silly. I think a lot of American films have been criticized for kind of like poking fun and minimizing girlhood to being just like this silly experience. I love the juxtaposition between her basic black dress and this really giant bow. On the topic of her black dress, Kiki does not like it. She says she thinks it looks dumb, but I guess it's the color that witches wear, so she has to wear it. And her mom tells her it's not really important the color that your dress is. What matters is the heart inside. Adorable. Before she has to wear this black dress though, she is shown in this light green dress with a light pink apron. And I think the transition from this colorful pastel dress to the black dress is another representation of her growing up. So another element of Kiki's outfit that I think is important, it's not technically a piece of her outfit, but she has it on her at all times when she's flying, is her radio. I love the fact that they made the bow and the radio match. Like, they may have just done this for aesthetic purposes, but it could maybe represent like the connection that Kiki has with her dad. Much like the radio, her mom's broom is something that she takes from home with her on this journey. And there's kind of drama about the broom because Kiki wants to bring a broom with her that she made, like her own broom. And her mom really puts her foot down and is like, no, Kiki, you gotta bring my broom. It's a good broom. And she ends up taking the old broom from her mom. There's nothing really special about this broom except for, I would say, the proportions. The broom is humongous in comparison to Kiki. Like, it's definitely oversized, and again, I think it's just another thing about her character design that makes it obvious that she is a child, which is important since, again, a major theme in this movie is growing up. Overall, I absolutely love Kiki's character design. I think that is a very popular opinion, and yeah, I wouldn't change a single thing. She's adorable. So this isn't a huge part of the movie, but since we're talking about art, I wanted to quickly mention Kiki's artist friend, Ursula. Ursula lives this cottagecore dream, like she lives alone in the woods, is friends with the crows, and she's an artist. So we love her here. She paints a very cool depiction of Kiki flying over the night sky. And the painting actually wasn't done by anyone at Studio Ghibli, but rather by a school teacher. And the studio got permission to use the painting in their film and also to add a face to the original illustration to represent Kiki. The original piece is called Ship Flying Over the Rainbow. The whole time that Kiki and Ursula are in the room with this painting, they're talking about the similarities between magic and art. She is the one that ultimately gives Kiki hope that she will fly again someday, and that maybe all she needs is a break. In the movie, Ursula says painting and magical powers seem very much the same. Sometimes I am unable to paint a thing. I mean, you probably relate to that. No matter what it is that we love to do, sometimes we just can't do it. Sometimes we need a break from it. Ursula basically is pointing out the similarities between Kiki's inability to fly and art block. I think this element of the movie is why so many artists love this movie. Like, it really is unique, I think, to see art block discussed in a movie. I don't know. Is that like a thing in other movies? Maybe. I haven't seen those movies though. I just wanted to talk about Ursula because I think she's awesome and I want to be like her. Now I want to talk a little bit about specific scenes in the movie from an art perspective. So one very iconic scene in the movie is the image of Kiki's childhood home in the woods. So basically it's showing this like overgrown home, like there's like ivy growing all over it, and then there's this winding stone path up to the front door, which is surrounded on all sides by flowers. So I think the composition of this piece is obviously like really strong. It really directs the eye towards the home. I absolutely love how many different shades of green we have in this scene. I think it's interesting because if I were assigned to like paint the same thing, I think I would have thought to use a more saturated green for the home, whereas the home is actually not that far off in color from the woods behind it. And I think that's kind of interesting. It kind of gives the vibe that the home is really like part of nature. And I think it really, again, helps to enforce the juxtaposition of this very like nature centric place that Kiki grew up and the city that she's going to end up in. So the next thing I want to discuss is actually not a scene from the movie, but rather I think this was actually the like cover for like DVD copies of the movie. It does a great job of drawing your eye to the main character. It shows the sprawling city Also, it shows like the lush nature that is on the outskirts of the city, but everything does a really great job of still directing your eye towards Kiki in the center. So the most obvious way that I think the background is doing this, at least in my opinion, is the reflection on the ocean. They have it positioned perfectly so that the glare from the sun hitting the ocean is right behind Kiki's head. Not only is the background doing that though, it also has a lot of city streets, and I think a lot of the lines lead your eye towards the center of the piece. So again, lead your eye towards Kiki. The colors that they chose, especially in this poster, are just like super obviously popping and in contrast to the background. So while the background does have some like orangey tones in the roof, they are very desaturated in comparison to the colors on Kiki. Side note about Gigi, the cat, like I want a cat that size. He's the size of like a little kitten, but he's like a fully grown cat, and like that would just be so cute. That'd be so cute if cats could just stay tiny like that. Ugh. I could go on about the art from this movie for ages, but I think I'm going to end it there. I hope you liked chatting about the art with me. Please feel free to leave any thoughts you have about the artwork or the film in general in the comments. I would love to hear them. I recommend that you watch my latest video. I was talking a little bit about my digital art journey over the past 2 years, so if you're into that kind of thing, I recommend you check it out. Until next time, I will talk to you later. Bye!